What if I told you that a 450-year-old book written by a nun for her tiny, isolated community was actually one of the most powerful guides ever made for focus, for discipline, and for building a totally resilient inner life? Well, today we are diving deep into St. Teresa of Avila's masterpiece, The Way of Perfection. And we're going to look at it not as some dusty old sermon, but as what it really is, a timeless, urgent manual for mastering the chaos, both out in the world and, more importantly, inside our own heads.
You know, to really get this book, you have to understand the world it was born into. Teresa wasn't just writing in her spare time. She felt, as she puts it right here, that the world is on fire. She saw chaos erupting all around her. The church was under attack. This was a response to a full-blown crisis. So for her, this was no time for praying about small, trivial things. The stakes were just way, way too high.
So seeing this huge fire consuming everything, Teresa decided she had to do something. Now, she wasn't a soldier. She couldn't pick up a sword. She was a woman of prayer. And she believed that the most powerful weapon in the universe was a fortified soul, an inner core so strong that nothing could conquer it. The way of perfection? Well, that was her battle plan for her nuns.
So let's get really specific about the context here. She wrote this for a very particular audience, the small group of nuns in her brand new reformed convent of St. Joseph's. And her goal? It was to give them a roadmap, a way, or a path to build just immense spiritual strength. She basically saw them as this small, elite fighting force that could help defend the entire world through the sheer power of their focused, disciplined prayer.
And this right here, this is the absolute core concept. Teresa's way is not about running away from all the world's problems. Not at all. It's about building an inner fortress, what she would later famously call the interior castle, that's so strong, so centered, that all the chaos of the outside world, it just can't get in. It's a journey inward to find the strength you need to live outward.
All right, so think about it. Before you set out on any difficult journey, you have to pack the essentials, right? Well, for Teresa, the spiritual journey was no different. She argued that before you can even think about mastering prayer, you have to have 3 foundational virtues locked down. These aren't optional extras. This is the very ground you have to walk on.
And here they are laid out crystal clear. First, mutual love. Second, detachment. And third, humility. Now, for Teresa, these aren't just 3 separate things on a checklist. No, they're an interconnected system. They support each other. Love gives you your direction. Detachment clears the junk out of your path. And humility keeps you from tripping over your own feet. Okay, now this is where it gets really, really interesting, especially how Teresa talks about love. It's not the sentimental, feel-good affection we usually think of. In fact, she says that kind of friendship can actually be a trap, a snare of the devil, because it's all about our own pleasure. True spiritual love, she says, looks past the body and focuses on the soul. It's a powerful desire to see another person grow and get closer to God, even if it means having tough conversations. It's aiming for something eternal, not something that just fades away. The second virtue is detachment. And wow, this quote just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? Teresa is warning her nuns against coddling themselves, against always worrying about their own comfort. Detachment for her isn't just about giving up stuff. It's about giving up our addiction to our own ego, our own will, our own self-indulgence. It's a call to be tough, to be spiritual warriors, not pampered children. And finally, we get to humility. This is the bedrock for the whole thing. For Teresa, real humility is just radical honesty with yourself. She says you have to run away from phrases like, "but I was right." It means you actually accept it when you're misunderstood, because you know your real hidden faults are probably way worse than what you're being accused of anyway. It's this constant, gut-level understanding that you are nothing, and God is everything. It's the ultimate ego killer. Okay, so you've packed your essentials, you've got love, detachment, humility, but now you've got to face the biggest challenge of the entire journey. Teresa compares the mind to an unruly horse, just constantly running wild, impossible to get a handle on. And hey, anyone who's ever tried to meditate for even 2 minutes knows exactly what she's talking about, right? So the big question is,
How do you tame that beast? Her answer is this technique she calls the prayer of recollection. And it's not about emptying your mind, it's about gathering it. It's about pulling all those scattered pieces of yourself together and bringing them home. So what does that mean exactly? Well, here's the definition straight from the text. The soul collects together all its faculties, that's your memory, your understanding, your will, all of it, and it consciously enters within itself to be with its God. It's like you're actively pulling the plug on the noisy outside world to go find the one who's already living inside you. And just listen to this beautiful metaphor she uses for our inner world. She calls it the little heaven of the soul. I mean, how amazing is that? She's reminding her nuns and us that you don't need to go climb some faraway mountain to find God. The maker of heaven and earth, he's already right there, dwelling inside you. The whole journey is just learning to turn inward and say hello. So you're probably thinking, okay, this sounds deep and mystical and kind of complicated. But you know what? Teresa's method is shockingly simple. Step 1, realize you are not alone. Your companion, the master, is right there. Step 2, and I love this, she says, I am asking you only to look at him. That's it. Don't get all tied up in knots trying to think deep thoughts. Just look. Turn the eyes of your soul toward him. And 3, talk to him. Not with fancy memorized prayers, but just with your own words, right from your heart. Simple, intimate, and deeply personal. So let's say you do this. You practice the way of perfection, you work on the virtues, you practice this prayer of recollection. Where does it all lead? What's the payoff? Teresa describes it as finally arriving at a fountain of living water, a place of deep, soul-quenching peace. And this destination has a name, the prayer of quiet. She describes it as this amazing state where your soul is just flooded with this incredible satisfaction and joy. And here's the key. The will is held captive. It doesn't want to be anywhere else. It doesn't want to do anything else. But, and this is so important, you can't achieve this. Teresa is absolutely clear. It is a pure gift from God. This has to be one of the most beautiful and intimate metaphors in all of spiritual writing. In this state, the soul is completely passive, just like a tiny baby at its mother's breast. It doesn't have to work or strive or even think. The will just loves, it receives, it effortlessly drinks the milk that God provides. It's a state of absolute trust, and it's perfect peace. And just how deep can this state get? Teresa gives this incredible example. She says the experience is so totally absorbing that time just kind of melts away. A person can spend an entire hour praying just one Our Father. Can you even imagine that? 60 minutes on a single prayer, because you're so completely immersed in the presence of God that every single word becomes an entire ocean of meaning. But here's the thing. Teresa wasn't some airy-fairy mystic with her head in the clouds. No way. She was a total pragmatist. She knew the spiritual path wasn't all just sublime joy. She was keenly aware of all the psychological and spiritual traps that could trip somebody up, even the most sincere person. So she left some very, very clear warnings. And here are some of the biggest ones she calls out. And man, did these sound familiar. The worst one, she says, is when we trick ourselves into believing we have virtues we don't actually have. You know, you decide to be patient, but that's a whole different thing from actually being patient when someone cuts you off in traffic. Other big dangers, getting proud of your spiritual highs, being tricked by fake holiness, and judging other people whose spiritual lives look different from yours. And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? It's so brilliant. You can feel super holy and patient when you're all by yourself. But true virtue, it only shows up under pressure. The real test isn't what you resolve to do in the quiet. It's how you react in the moment, at that first annoying word. So how do you stay safe on this path? Teresa says you need two things working together, like two wings of a bird, love and fear. Love is the engine. It's that passionate desire for God that makes you want to run down the path. But fear is the guide. A healthy fear of messing things up makes you watch where you're stepping so you don't fall flat on your face. You need both, the drive of love and the caution of fear, to make it safely. So here we are, Teresa of Avila. She gave her nuns a way to find peace in a world she saw as being on fire. Her insights into our psychology, our need for focus, the traps of the ego, they feel like they could have been written this morning. She's handing us a map to an inner castle, a source of peace that doesn't depend on what's happening outside. So the question she leaves for us, for our own turbulent times, is this: what can her 450-year-old map teach us about navigating the path to our own center today?